Gojira, Meshuggah, Cattle Decapitation, Death, Napalm Death, Testament, The Dillinger Escape Plan, Cradle of Filth, Cryptopsy. No, I did not just throw up alphabet soup of the who's who of every metal genre ever. I was simply listing bands that have all gotten the label at one point or another of extreme metal. It's become such a ubiquitous term, and it's been synonymous with every metal thing ever. Yeah, metalheads dispute genres a lot, but in the end, no one really cares, but the one sort of constant is the fact that no matter where you fit snugly into or unsnugly, your prerogative. You are going to get this label thrust upon you one way or another. But what exactly does extreme metal mean? What does it constitute? Has it lost all of its meaning, or does it still have its place? Pinning extreme metal down might be a little easier than you may think. But just because it's easy to describe doesn't mean it's necessarily easy to understand. It is a catch-all genre. It is an umbrella term of sorts, where you have it sitting at the top of the echelon on the top of the corpse pile, and every other little genre sort of just cascades down in different forms of extremity. When you boil extreme metal down to what it was initially intended to be, it was basically a way of grouping every metal subgenre into a community, and no matter what you were doing, it was still considered extreme metal no matter how fast you were, no matter how slow you were. And I think there sort of is this general misunderstanding that extreme metal has to be very loud, very fast, it has to be brutal, when that's actually not the case, and extreme metal goes across the entire spectrum. So a genre like funeral doom metal, a band like Mournful Congregation or Bell Witch, are just as much extreme metal as a slow and chuggy doomy dying fetus with their form of brutal death metal, or an extremely fast BPM, hectic, chaotic mess of a genre blending band like Cattle Decapitation. They are all uniquely extreme metal, but they fall under the same category with their little subcategories. And finding anything about the history of the term, where it came from, or why it exists in the first place can get a little bit dicey, because the literal listing of extreme metal, the very first thing that you see is it's loosely defined. And I feel like throughout time it's almost been like a lazy term, and a term that may not necessarily be obsolete but kind of getting there, in the same way, in my opinion, that it feels a little redundant and lazy to just call anything that is remotely difficult to describe from an experimental department avant-garde. It's immediately avant-garde. You don't have to use your brain to think about it. You don't have to use any of your brain cells. You can have this nice little label to put on it that doesn't actually describe anything about the music itself. Luckily, that's why every single band that I personally have seen that gets the extreme metal label also have their main genre, i.e. the umbrella term being extreme metal, and then below it is whatever cluster of genres makes up their sound. So a band like Anana Thrak that has influences from black metal and death metal and industrial music are extreme metal, and it's just a way of sort of categorizing them. But nowadays, is extreme metal a term that needs to be used? Because bear with me for a second, generally speaking, you're gonna call any form of metal heavy metal. It's just metal music. If I'm talking about death metal or I'm talking about black metal, yeah, I'm gonna use that terminology, but it's metal music. It's heavy metal music at the end of the day. And when I tell someone that a band is an extreme metal band, that gives them fucking nothing to go off of, considering just how broad it is. You saw the bands that I listed in the start. The bands that I listed at the start of this video could not be further apart from each other and literally span the entirety of metal. So if you have someone that's trying to get into metal or get into a specific movement or band, recommending something and just describing it as extreme metal feels so obsolete and just like you're just tacking it on. And to me, it almost feels like a nothing burger of a genre. Something that by its mere existence cannot be given a clear-cut definition by its creation. And if I hear something described as extreme metal, and this is coming from someone that listens to thousands of hours of metal a year, that gives me nothing stepping into an album. Is it going to be very slow? Is it going to be very fast? Is it going to be extremely brutal and heavy? Is it going to be more slow-paced? Is it going to be atmospheric? Is it raw? Is it well-produced? Does it have clean vocals, growled vocals, screamed vocals? Literally, the answer could be yes for any of that. And nowadays, now that we have so many clear-cut genres and subgenres that properly describe the music that we're listening to, extreme metal just feels like a term that has kind of just fell out of fashion and doesn't do much, because if the whole point is to define something and we have clear-cut definitions that we can box something into, you can just list those genres to describe something. You don't need this amalgamation bastard term that is just describing something put together, because you can't really describe the sum of its parts without just saying it's extreme. And if I'm wanting to listen to something and someone's recommending me something, I'd like to know the bare minimum going into it. I'd like to know what to expect. What is the tone? What's the texture of the album? Because the definition here that says the term usually refers to a more abrasive, harsher, underground, non-commercialized style associated with the speed metal, thrash metal, black metal, death metal, and doom metal genres. Hardcore punk has been considered an integral part of the development of extreme metal in song structure and speed, apart from the case of doom metal. And while I understand where it's coming from, the underground has always been flourishing, and it doesn't take away from the genre movements that those came from, because all of the genres that were listed there as constituting extreme metal, they have their own scenes, they have their own movements, and I don't think you need to tack on this other umbrella term that just muddies the waters when you could just describe it as what it is to begin with, or a combination of genres is what I think you should do. Because to me, when I'm looking at this list of genres and bands, it seems like it is just every genre and every band all together. I understand that heavy metal is heavy metal, and that's like, you know, the Judas Priests and the Iron Maidens, but metal just as a blanket term has serviced us fine for a while, and no one's gonna judge you if you say Anonithrax metal or Cattle Decapitation is metal. Fuck yeah, they're metal. They're kick-ass, badass metal. What are your guys' opinions of the extreme metal label? Do you think that it should exist, or do you disagree with it? Do you use it yourself? There is no wrong answer. You can let me know down in the comment section below. I can't wait to hear it. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to join the review family today, and smash that notification bell to be notified of my future uploads. You know who it is. My name is Jay Morris, and I'm signing off saying farewell.